Can the Boy Scouts come up here for just a moment, please, from Troop 343?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Troop 343 is responsible for the goodies we've got out here tonight. They also came here and helped us set up. Two of them right here. Let's tell them thank you. Welcome to the Supervisor District 4 Candidates Night, sponsored by the Calaveras Chamber of Commerce and the Calaveras Enterprise. I am Buzz Eggleston. I'm the editor of the Calaveras Enterprise. The 4 candidates here tonight, they seek your vote in the June 3rd election. If none of them receive more than 50% of the vote that day, the 2 who do receive the most votes will go off to a runoff in November 4th. Tonight's format is simple. Each candidate will be given 5 minutes for an opening statement. Our official timer is Jack Bodie, President of the Chamber of Commerce. He will signal the candidate who is speaking when 1 minute is left on the clock, and he'll again signal with a red card when your time is up. After the candidate's opening statements, we'll go to questions you've submitted from the audience. The audience is also encouraged to submit. We'll take a break about midway through, and you're encouraged to submit more questions. Those are going to be screened by Diane Gray, the Chamber's Executive Director, and by Jan Hovey, the Enterprise's Advertising Director. After they screen the questions, they'll bring them to me and I'll ask them. When you submit a question, please don't address it to a specific candidate. We want to hear what all of the candidates' views are on the issues. We have a limited amount of time, so please make your questions to a point. On the questions, candidates will be limited to no more than 3 minutes. As a moderator, I may ask follow-up questions if necessary. If time allows, we'll have concluding remarks at the end for each of them. So I'd like to get this started. We had a random order drawing for who's going to go first, and tonight Lee Seaton is going to be the first person to answer a question. And do you have some questions for me? That's not that. All right. Lee, why don't you start?
Sure. Is that working okay for everyone? Okay, thank you. Why am I running in this race? Well, it's really to confront the challenges that we all face. We have an exceptional quality of life here in Calaveras County and the 4th District, but we are confronted by a number of problems, some of which are the product of neglect, some of them are the products of continued prosperity, some of them are the consequence of the current downturn in the economy nationwide. I think it's important that we recognize that we have these challenges and that we plan to provide solutions to them. We will not preserve and be able to pass on the communities that we have found if we do not, in fact, solve these problems. What I have is a business experience, a teaching experience, a public service experience that I think that has provided me with a foundation on which to craft solutions. These are solutions that require teamwork, and diversity will have to be part of the participation in order to build a sound foundation for the future. I think that my experience in a wide variety of roles, both in business and education and in public service, have given me the perspective necessary to bring groups of people together towards solutions that will then serve our communities, not only during our lifetime, but leave a legacy, so much like the legacy that we found, of a beautiful, high-quality, rural community that we can all enjoy passing on to our children. But how do we get there? It's one thing to recognize the challenge, and it's another thing to have a foundation to build solutions, but we have to build those solutions. Where are we going to get those solutions? What are going to be the characteristics that will move us forward? Many of you may have recognized that President Bush recognized one of the communities in Kansas that's rebuilding itself after a terrible, devastating tornado. That community, Greenfield, Kansas, has made a commitment to building green for the future. That is, they're going to rebuild their community, but take full advantage of the new technologies and the new solutions that exist today. I believe we have the foundation right here in the 4th District, particularly in the Utica Power Authority, to be an integral part of building a new future, one that features renewable energy and sustainable ways of life. I believe that the foundations that are there can be leveraged to create a more vibrant and vital future for all of our communities. This is the kind of solution, along with economic development, that I believe is necessary for us to move forward, to overcome the obstacles that we meet, and to bring our best practices from all of our diverse backgrounds to bear. Thank you very much.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for coming this evening. We're all really busy, and I appreciate such a large crowd actually coming out to hear all of us and what we have to say. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I am a Bay Area transplant. I've been coming up to this area for about 27 years, but moved here permanently 11 years ago. And since that time, I have primarily worked as a reporter, both in the print media and on the internet. And I've covered the Board of Supervisors primarily, and for a couple of years I covered the Angels County City Council meetings as well. And if you actually put together all the time that I've spent in the Board of Supervisors room, it would be about 3.5 years. So if I ran a few years ago, I may already have served one term. But that gave me a perspective of the issues in the county, what the Board of Supervisors, what they actually do, what sort of decisions they make, and the hard choices that they make. I've also served as a field representative for Calaveras County and Amador County and Tuolumne County for the State Assembly, first for Tim Leslie and then Dave Cogdale, which actually added to my sort of political mentality, because I was able to see how we as a rural county really fit into the state as a whole, and how the state's decisions do affect us, and how we really need to maintain our own vision and an implementation of that vision to be able to survive in how we as a rural county view ourselves. And I've also served as an elected official. I've sat on the Evans Pass Veterans Memorial District Board for the last 5 years. And that particular board for the past 5 or 6 years actually, in that board, we've had the focus of actually building veterans memorials. And I'm very proud of the fact that we have dotted them around the Evans Pass corridor from actually Douglas Flat up to the Alpine County border, and are still working on that. One of the main reasons why I decided to run is I think that our county is at a tipping point now in its growth. I don't think there's any question as to the fact that we are going to grow. And it is how we will grow, whether it's in a healthy, managed way, that is the question, and that is really the difficult decision of the Board of Supervisors, is how we are going to developmentally manage our growth and manage our economic growth as well. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Ron Klass, and I too am attempting to be a supervisor for District 4, because I sincerely believe that there are directions that the county needs to take that are aren't being presently looked at as well as stated. My wife and I have been up here for 13 years. We're independent business people. I have an independent business. My wife has a business, and obviously my son and daughter-in-law have a couple businesses in town. So we have a complete understanding, or reasonably complete understanding of what goes on a day-to-day basis, certainly in Murphy's, and appreciate and respect what's going on in the other cities, in the other areas in the county. My background is that I've spent the last 30, 35 years in corporate life. I've been involved with companies such as Gillette, the Estee Lauder Company, Revlon, IT&T, Rosenthal A&G. And with those particular companies, I was involved at an executive level of management, more often than not purchasing and redirecting companies, domestic as well as international. That includes working, negotiating with companies and employees and other executives. So I have a broad background on planning and executing those plans and understanding what's needed and what compromises need to be taken in order for the community to go in a direction that I happen to believe it should be going into. I happen to, as I mentioned earlier, my wife and I came up here 13 years ago, and because of my son and his wife came up earlier. And we fell in love with it, like I'm sure everybody here did. And we really don't want to change it. What we want to do is preserve it, and I think the way we best preserve the growth of the community is the growth is here. It was here last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and it's going to be coming even faster in the future. Because we need to preserve our present lifestyle, and in order to do that, we have to be in a position where we can afford it. And right now, the county cannot afford it. We already know that we're over $2 million in debt as we come into the new budget. I'm very sorry that the Board of Supervisors hadn't taken that into consideration when they were planning their budget. When you plan budgets and you plan exercise as far as development and growth, you plan for alternatives, and you plan for the expected loss, and you plan for the opportunities. And it seems as though that's not taking place. So when we go home every month and we write out checks for our mortgage and our car payments and whatever else, we know that we can't write those checks out without money in the bank. And the only way we're going to have money in the bank is to earn it. And the only way we as a county can earn it, in my opinion, is that we need to develop economic opportunities in Calaveras County. What I mean by economic opportunities is that we must, as the Board of Supervisors and as the county, we must develop a team, certainly the Board of Supervisors is one, and be a functional part of the county and investigate companies and opportunities outside this Calaveras County and possibly outside of California to come into Calaveras County and set up their industries. When I'm speaking of industries, I'm speaking of light industries, I'm speaking of solar industries, I'm speaking of environmental industries. Most of these companies that are presently doing very well, and they are doing very well, are in areas that are extremely expensive. Orange County, the Bay Area, Marin, certainly Seattle, the area around Portland. These are very expensive areas to do business in. We offer them an opportunity to move their businesses or add to their present businesses opportunities for growth in Calaveras County. Not only will that establish a better tax foundation that is more functional and more stable, which obviously tourism isn't, so we can rely on these monies and these taxes coming in so that we can budget properly, which also will give us, with companies in this particular Calaveras County, it will give our young people not an opportunity to get a job, but an opportunity to have a career. And I think we need to offer the young people of this county the opportunity for a career, not just a job. Because we're losing these people, and for all the right reasons. They need to make a living. Well, let's have an opportunity where they graduate from high school or Columbia College. They fought on love like we all did. We got married, had children, and they stayed here and developed a career in life. What more legacy could we give them than that? And I believe that that's we're very able to do that if we're given an opportunity. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am your current county supervisor, and I guess my history is for the last 24 years as I have been your county supervisor. I feel very fortunate, indeed I feel very blessed to have represented District 4. I think certainly on the Highway 4 corridor, and I think in Calaveras County, I represent the two communities that are the most community-oriented community centers in Calaveras County, that being Angels Camp and that being Murphy's. If you look up the hill, you see it's mostly outside subdivisions. If you look down at Copper, it's almost large-scale new communities without any really identified development around the core community center. We're fortunate in District 4 to have core community centers in both Angels Camp and in Murphy's. We also basically have the same, and when I say Murphy's, I'm including Douglas Flat. We also basically have a core community in Vallecito. One of the reasons we have core communities and the other areas have not is because we have had an emphasis on infrastructure. If you go to the City of Angels, you don't build a house, you don't do anything within the city limits if you're not on sewer and water. I've preached for a long period of time the need for infrastructure. We don't do much in Murphy's, and we're on infrastructure. I'm holding up a couple developments right now based on their needs to have infrastructure. I think as further development occurs within our district on the Highway 4 corridor, we need to emphasize that we want growing communities. We don't want separate subdivisions. One of the things I am adamantly opposed to are gated subdivisions, which I think tend to divide communities rather than be inclusive in the community. In our district, we only have one gated subdivision, and that's in Angels Camp, and it's a very small one out on Dogtown Road. I never quite understood why they wanted that to be a gated subdivision, but they did. But it could have been different. You know, Greenhorn Creek could be a gated subdivision. Stelty Park could be a gated subdivision. Angels Oaks could be a gated subdivision in Angels Camp. They're not. That's one of the reasons we have such a community in Angels Camp. You can come into Murphy's. You know, the development out on Bret Harte Drive, that could be a gated subdivision. The one that's being proposed behind Bret Harte Drive, where the limestone is, could be a gated subdivision. The one out by Bob Reagan, the Walkers are proposing, could be a gated subdivision. And the key is that we need to grow as a community. We need to identify as a community. We've done very well in Murphy's identifying as a community, and that's reflective in the volunteerism that's reflected in Murphy's. And quite frankly, you have that same level of volunteerism in Angels Camp. You look around and see the parks, and see the fire department, see the branch library, etc. Those are substantially supported in both communities by huge volunteer efforts. And we've been very fortunate in my district in fostering and developing community volunteer efforts and having the residential development identify as a member of the community. I think that needs to continue, and one of the bases for continuing that is the requirement for infrastructure. And I think the requirement of infrastructure is not just for residential, it is for commercial also. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll get to the questions. And the first question, we'll start with Sarah Lunsford and proceed from there. In light of soaring energy prices, what are your plans to reduce the county's energy footprint, to conserve energy, and to promote greening the county?
Well, that's a loaded question. I think really it starts on an individual basis, and no matter what a board does, no matter what a commission does, it is what an individual does in their own consumption as far as greening or their individual carbon footprint that really has the maximum impact of bringing down these emissions. So basically, as a Board of Supervisors member, I would just encourage people to do it on an individual basis.
Yes, I also think that's a loaded question, but that's okay. Because loaded questions make you stay awake. Well, one of the things we are doing, which is really wonderful, even though the Board of Supervisors have referred to it as welfare transit, we have a bus service here in Calaveras County that is in its infancy, but it's absolutely fantastic. And I know that for a fact because of being a business person. Several of our employees at Brown's Restaurant in Firewood use this bus service to come to work, which is phenomenal. I mean, they don't have a car, or they have a car that can't be used on a day-to-day basis, so they really thoroughly enjoy this bus service. What we as a Board of Supervisors, what we need to do is find funding to expand the services for this particular opportunity, not only for our senior citizens, which we seem to every so often neglect, but also for the young people who are trying to go from job to job or trying to keep their jobs with $4 a gallon. It's not easy. It's, as my son said, I lived in the salad days in the 50s. But a young gal who works at Brown's just a couple of days ago said, I just heard that they're going to try to cancel the transit service. Is that true? And I said, well, I sincerely hope. I said, well, I'm going to have to buy a car. I can't afford to buy a car. So I think we have to be very, very aware of what the young people and the senior people need, and excuse me, but deserve in this county. So, thank you.
Well, if you want to have a direct answer, the marketplace is going to determine most of these directions. Obviously, with the high price of gasoline or fuel, I use diesel, which is higher than even the highest price gasoline. People well conserved, and people basically all are conserving. I am not for the government, for Calaveras County government, coming up with a lot of rules or regulations or laws to impose on the citizenry. It's basically going to be an individual choice. A lot of individuals are now putting up solar panels and putting power back into the grid. George Wendell-Morris has put in a substantial facility. Jeff and Jesse German out on Dogtown have put in a significant facility. A lot of this is not going to be government driven. It's going to be individual driven. And it will be marketplace driven. It will be individual driven, and it will be marketplace driven. And that's where we're going to get our signals. You can't subsidize everything. Everyone says, well, I'm adamantly opposed to transit. I am adamantly opposed to just subsidizing transit to the extent we subsidize it. In the end, even if you're green, you can't subsidize everything, because if you subsidize everything, you will kill the host. In the end, we're all paying the subsidies. So, in the end, the markets are going to have to work, and the subsidies are going to have to recede. And the prime example, I guess, is ethanol, which is absolutely not green and is absolutely a disaster. And I guess if I wanted to be technically green, I could tell you that we should go out and plant corn in the county and put in an ethanol plant. But I think that's just the opposite of green. So those are my comments.
Mr. Seaton?
Well, I think it's a great question. It's the question of maybe of our time. We are mandated by state law to include efforts to reduce greenhouse gases in our general plan. That's not an option, that's a requirement. There are federal tax and possibly state tax credits to encourage people to invest in renewable energy sources. I support the continuation of those tax credits. Remember, those tax credits are our tax dollars. They should come back to us. We need to compete for those grants and funds on a world-class basis, because if we don't take them, they go elsewhere, and our tax dollars are then subsidizing other communities. I want those dollars returned to this community. There are a number of things specifically. I've identified a plan as part of the joint Board of Supervisors, City Council, Joint Economic Development Summit meetings. I've presented a 10-point plan. I'm not going to try to go through all 10 points in 3 minutes. That'd be a disservice to you. It is available on my website, and I invite you to take a look at it, and I invite you to participate in every possible opportunity in the Economic Development Summit. Your inputs are vital in shaping economic development to serve the interests of our community. There's a few things I would point out, though. We have the opportunity to create green benefit basins. We need to expand our infrastructure, but we do not want to burden existing ratepayers with the cost of development. Green benefit basins are a way of isolating new infrastructure investments so that they are borne by the people who directly benefit from them. That will, in turn, reduce the carbon footprint by reducing greenhouse gas emissions. It's very important that our new Calaveras campus of Columbia College, which will be located in District 4, needs to feature the vocational and educational skills to create green jobs. Those are very good paying jobs, and they're essential to our public safety, our education, and our communities. And I'd also like to put a plug in for the Council of Governments bicycle pedestrian master plans, because they also are a way we individually can use our own health to promote safe and green, if you wish, commute patterns. And finally, we have excellent recreational opportunities in this community that don't require gasoline or diesel. We can enjoy the horses, we can enjoy hiking, we can enjoy kayaking and a lot of other things. We have excellent recreational resources that will help both the environment's health as well as our own. Thank you.
We'll begin the next round of questions with Mr. Klass. How do you feel about term limits?
That's a loaded question. Well, I think after 22 years, you might want to go and count your head. I don't know. No, seriously. I think term limits are extremely important for this reason. I think as a service, and I believe being a supervisor or being involved with Angels Camp City Hall, I think a supervisor is a service. I think you should take on that responsibility to serve the public of whatever district that you have decided to or was elected to run. I don't think it should be a career. I don't think you should look on it as an income generator. I don't think you need to give yourself increases when the opportunity arises. I think you must accept the responsibility of the supervisor, serve the community, serve the public as it was intended when they voted for you, and then after the second term, I think you should say to the citizens of your district, thank you very much, and I sincerely hope the next person can do a better job than me. Thank you.
Mr. Klein.
My answer to that obviously is no. The reason the citizens at the state level wanted term limits is because they got tired of the safe districting and the abomination of redistricting into safe seats to the point where there was basically just absolutely no turnover and there was no contest. Obviously here I am, a 24-year incumbent, and there's 3 incumbents running against me, and I don't have the luxury of basically a safe district that once I declare, nobody else runs. We don't have that in county government. I will tell you this, one of the reasons our district has done so well is because the supervisor, basically being myself, has been in office for a considerable period of time. You can't be an effective supervisor, and one of the reasons you can look at the other districts, and I don't care, you can go down to Valley Springs, or San Andres, or West Point, one of the reasons they trail so badly is because they turn over their supervisors constantly. And county government is different than state government, or federal government. In state government, you have the governor, he appoints all his department heads, you have constitutional offices, you have the state legislature that oversees almost nothing, they just make laws. County government is unique. County government is a combination of the judicial, the administrative, and the legislative. We make the laws, we enforce through the administration of enforcing the laws, and we are also the judicial branch. You can't go to Superior Court until you finish your administrative remedies at the county level. So county government is very different. And if you want to have an effective county government, and you want to have good governance, and you want your districts to do well, then as a minimum, you better elect competent people that are willing to serve as a minimum of 16 years, because you're basically turning over the CAO of your district within county government. So the idea that you're going to do well, having 8 years, it takes 6 years to get through the learning curve, in my opinion, on the Board of Supervisors. You can't send somebody down there unless you want to look like the other districts. So that's my comment.
It's okay. Ooh, Mike. Well, city government does everything basically the county government does without the plural executive. And I believe that 2 terms is enough. And that's a self-imposed limit. I believe there are 2 kinds of effective term limits. One is the kind of, and I'm not trying to flatter myself, but George Washington set the pattern of American presidents at 2 terms. He chose to do that. I will have served almost 2 full terms when this election is decided. That will be my self-imposed farewell to the city government. The second kind of term limit I think that works is voter-imposed term limits. It's really up to you to decide when enough is enough. I believe that strongly. If you're completely content with the service that you're receiving, then why, is the phrase, why change horses midstream? I think that there are real issues that suggest that things are not going smoothly and that we need to revitalize county government, not only at the Board of Supervisors level, but new leadership in many of the departments. I mean, it's always a question when you open the newspaper and look and see what new issue has been revealed by either state auditors or internal problems, or, you know, that's usually a sign that things have gotten a little stale. There needs to be turnover in any organization. I come out of the corporate business world. It was very common for terms of CEOs and other senior managers to be a routine part. It's part of the healthiness of a vibrant organization. So it's not a negative to have change. It's the enabler to make sure that there's freshness, that there's no cronyism or good old boys, or all those things that we all know don't make for efficient government. So 2 kinds, self-imposed, I'm practicing that. Voter limits, you get to practice those.
I am not in favor of term limits. One illustration about that is our special districts. If we had to turn our special district board members out after 2 terms, we wouldn't have very many special districts with full boards. Also, added to that, at another level, the city council level, the board of supervisors level, the state level, the federal level, when people serve more than 2 terms, they have an institutional memory. They know what's gone on in the past. If they're there for 10 years, 15 years, they know if a certain crisis comes up, there's a blueprint to solve it, or to change the way it was solved before so it doesn't happen again. Now, as far as limits go, I think it's up to the people to vote people out that they don't want in the office any longer. And I think that should be the only term limit, in quotes, that is instituted, and it's really already embedded in our system.
We'll start the next round with Mr. Tryon. What is your position on big box stores, i.e. Target, Walmart?
Well, I guess I'm a free market guy, and I put a lot of faith in the marketplace. I would tell you that we already have small box stores, and I gave that in an earlier candidates forum in Angels Camp, where we have basically Save Mart and Rite Aid and Lawns. If people if companies wish to come in, retail stores, and do the feasibility studies and say, gee, we can provide services to the citizens of this county that they wish to receive, and we can make money doing that, then I think we should entertain them. I think we should allow people to submit an application, and we should process that application and review it. On box stores, to me the issue is, number one is location, number two is infrastructure, and number three is design. And there isn't any reason that and we're not going to get a Walmart superstore is not coming to Calaveras County or any place in Calaveras County. We may get some more franchise type stores, whether it be a Staples or a Mervyn's or a Big Five, certain use of sporting goods or something like that. But to sit here and basically say that the world will end based on the square footage of the retail store, I don't think makes any sense. I think you need a better analysis, and you need to think it through. You need an application. You need to think about location, infrastructure, design, and then comment upon an application and not do it in a vacuum. Thank you.
Mr. Seaton? Who's next? Mr. Seaton?
Can't have players without a program. Well, economic development is a critical aspect, as I mentioned earlier. We need to work together between the Board of Supervisors and the City Council and all of the stakeholders in the private sector in order to map out a plan that will create the economic opportunities that are essential to the quality of life in our county. There's a lot of focus on the retail aspect of that, and acknowledging that the city have held a number of workshops in which both expertise and community participation has been brought to discuss those. We're having another such meeting tomorrow afternoon at the fire station with the Planning Commission and the City Council working together to understand what, if any, legislation may be appropriate to carry to protect, for example, historic districts. Also to make sure that any kind of development is within the zoning and general plan objectives that we've already outlined in the city's general plan update process. So economic development needs to be balanced, because it's not sufficient to only focus on one kind of economic development. We need to have an approach that will improve the shopping opportunities in the district and in the county, because we need to stop the sales tax flight that drains dollars and jobs out of our economy. That's a reality that we need to face. It's one of those challenges I talked about earlier. We need to also use the resources that we have to attract quality people, quality entrepreneurs who will bring their spirits to improve the retail and other business opportunities in the county. I think that the Joint Economic Development Summit is a great vehicle, and the June meeting or July meeting that's under plan right now should be a great forum for everyone to participate in defining our future in economic terms. Thank you.
Yes, economic, sorry.
That's okay, I can speak for myself. Basically, I am a proponent of big box stores, and let me tell you why. When I moved here 11 years ago, people who had been in the county for many years said to me, make sure you buy locally. And I said, why? And they said, so you can put your retail sales tax dollars back in the county. So I went down to Middleton's, and I got my big appliances, and I had a young family, and I could not buy very much else for my family in this county. And that is why I think big box stores, or some derivative of big box stores, is very important. We need to have retail opportunities that are affordable for the families who live here, as well as the elderly people. We're all going, I mean, nobody really wants to admit it, but we're all going over to Martell, we're all going over to Sonora, we're all going down to Modesto or Stockton, and there's no reason, if we manage these retail outlets correctly, place them in areas where there's infrastructure and where they're easily accessible, and manage their locations, there's no reason why we have to spend $20 to $30 on a tank of gas to go shopping for linens, towels, or whatever other basic necessities that we need. So yes, that is the reason why I am at Ronan and Box stores.
My turn?
Yes, sir.
Well, ever since I got into this particular campaign, I've been talking about economic development. And the reason I'm talking about economic development is that's what I know, that's where my background is and was. And I look at it as the horse and the carriage. Economic development will allow this county to become prosperous. Economic development will allow the young people an opportunity to develop careers. Economic development will give a tax base that is consistent, not fluctuating like a tourist business. Economic development will allow us to be very proud, once again, as we are now, what we have, but very proud of the fact that we have evolved into a sound economical community. And by being economical, it allows us also to afford to shop in the small stores that we have. Secondly, a big box store, and I've dealt with the stores all my life. The companies I'm associated with are product-oriented, high-end product-oriented, in all the products I've ever worked with. When you start dealing with big box stores, this is what they offer you. Not me, but this is what they offer the person who's looking for an opportunity. Low-paying jobs, no health benefits, or if there is health benefits, you're going to pay for it out of your low-paying job. No job security, no retirement package. So what are we offering the young people? What are we offering the community as far as a career opportunity is concerned? All we're offering is a quick jump start opportunity to maybe get some tax base with a big box store in our county. Well, all retail stores, ladies and gentlemen, negotiate. And trust me, the Walmarts of the world, the Bloomingdale's of the world, the Trader Joe's of the world, the Costco's of the world, they negotiate. And very few cities or counties are profitable the first 5 years when they allow a big box store to come into the area. So rather than catching our tail and trying to get these types of retails into Calaveras County, let's develop a foundation of economical soundness so that the next generation will be able to decide what they need and what they want. And as far as, and I agree with Sarah in this regard, I mean, we do go to Costco, right? We all go to Costco. And we all go to Sonora. We all go to these places. But you know what they have that we don't have? All the mess. We don't have those stores that we go to once a month, which I sincerely appreciate that they do have those stores. We don't need it here. It doesn't go with Calaveras County. This isn't our legacy. Our legacy is opportunity, beauty, and service. And I think that's where I stand on this point. And thank you very much.
The next question, next round will begin with Mr. Seaton. With an estimated $300 million deficit in infrastructure, water and sewer, how do you plan to tackle that problem with a population of about 50,000 people?
Well, $300 million is a little bit beyond my line of credit, so we'll have to turn elsewhere. Well, we didn't get into it overnight, and we won't get out of it overnight. So it's going to take not just one plan of action, but a coordinated set of actions to restore and cover the $300 million deficit. We got there because we didn't make development pay its own way. Well, that's a good place to start. Make sure that development pays its own way. Secondly, make sure that tourism, which has a direct impact on all of those county services and the infrastructure, pays its way. In the city, we raised the transit occupancy tax, the tourist tax, and dedicated that money to specifically the public services that are impacted by tourism, the roads, public safety, and economic development. 1/3 of the increase went to funding the Visitors Bureau. So we make an investment in growing our tourist business because it's essentially a clean and self-financing business. So we can move forward and grow. So I would recommend that the voters vote to increase the county TOT, and that both the county and the city raise their TOT, the transit occupancy tax, to fully leverage that tax income. Secondly, we need to get busier in the county going after grants and low-cost loans. The city has been very successful in reducing the cost of infrastructure by seeking government grants, particularly from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, because we are a rural community. And I guess the main thing we need to look at is we need to grow the business base, in the commercial base in the county. I believe we can do that by focusing on green energy resources, hydroelectric, solar, possibly wind. Certainly last night we could have run some generators. So these are things that we can invest in that will increase the economic base for the county as a whole. All of that will be funds available to restore our infrastructure to where it needs to be. Thank you.
Well, $300 million deficit is in water and wastewater, if I understand the question correctly, is a huge amount. Now, water and wastewater is handled by multiple different special districts in this county. The Board of Supervisors doesn't really have a direct control or impact on those special districts beyond communication. And I think really to handle this sort of a deficit, the special districts need to communicate with one another. First of all, figure out a plan of action of how this deficit is actually going to be handled, taken care of, and what needs to be done to upgrade these water and wastewater. It's not only the lines, it's the plants as well. A lot of times regulation comes from the federal and the state government that actually increases the certification level of water plants and wastewater treatment plants, which then increases the cost of the treatment level. So you're dealing with two different issues. You're dealing with this deficit issue of old lines that need to be replaced, a higher population level that's using those lines, and then you have a regulatory aspect of it where it's actually costing more to treat water and wastewater. Now, there are grants available on the federal level. We as a county were able to get some grant monies to upgrade the plants over in the West Point area. And I think that if the special districts actually got together and really tried to leverage some of the federal funding, I don't think there's going to be any state funding anytime soon for anything like this, given the economic state of the state right now. But I think really it's going to take a lot of working together, and I think that, I hate to say it, but I think all the stakeholders are going to have to pay a price, which means the consumers are going to have their rates increased to be able to share in this deficit problem. We didn't get here by one aspect didn't get here by ourselves. We sort of all got here together, and we're going to have to dig ourselves out of it together.
I couldn't agree more with Sarah's comments. But I would also like to add to that, if I may, and that is, this didn't happen overnight. Where was the planning involved? Who was looking at this 20 years ago, 18 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago? It appears to be popping up like tulips. We're looking at that kind of deficit to me, in Calaveras County is not only staggering, but it's insulting. Again, with the general plan that we're working on and with the infrastructure that we have to establish and develop, this should have been taking place 20 years ago. And I know hindsight is a lot more enjoyable or a lot easier than it is at present. But I have to, forgive me, I have to say that most often, and certainly with corporations, and certainly, and I believe also with the county, when certain situations like this develop, it should not be a surprise to the executives. This is part of their responsibility, is planning and executing and developing alternatives. As far as the district's concerned, like Sarah was concerned, I still, forgive me, I still don't understand why they're not unified. And I would certainly look into that. But again, once again, we're looking at money. Once again, we're looking at port planning. And I think we need to properly plan, and we have to properly budget. And we can only do that if we have the revenue to allow us to maintain the lifestyle that we'll certainly love to enjoy. And you know, we're here temporarily, so I think we must service and volunteer this county with all that we can to make sure that those problems that do develop aren't as massive as the one we're looking at present. So thank you very much.
We have considerable deficits in our capital budgets in the special districts for water and sewer. That has come about, in my opinion, for three reasons. Number one is the rates that were charged for many years by the independent districts did not recover a replacement charge. All they covered was the annual operating costs of operating the business, and they did not incorporate a replacement charge. Secondly, the state has significantly changed the rules and regulations now for wastewater and for public drinking water requirements, and those have driven costs up dramatically. We've had to come in and basically restructure our plants, etc. Along with that is because of the cost of operating these plants today, we're too small and we're too inefficient on a lot of our special districts. We don't have the economy of scales. We're going to need more connections to justify the spreading of these capital costs. And quite frankly, in my opinion, the only way we're going to do that is basically through regionalization. And we're going to have to, and let me speak directly to Murphy's. And we've had Murphy's Sanitary all over the newspaper here recently. I think Fred's still on board there. We probably have some issues there. We have a moratorium in the Douglas Flat plant that services Cedar. We basically have a moratorium on San Andreas. We have a moratorium in Valley Spring. We have just about a moratorium every place but Copper and Orange. And we're going to have some regionalization. I strongly disagree with the solution to this is to tax tourists more. And we need to increase the tax on tourists. I think makes absolutely no sense at all to me. We need to come up with solutions that the systems pay for themselves. And the other strong disagreement I would be with Lee is the idea that new development doesn't pay its fair share. New development does pay its fair share, and it pays more than its fair share. And usually it's the new development that comes in and pays for the upgrade of these plants and the like. And the communities that are in the greatest harm's way are those that don't have any growth or any new development, because they are truly stuck with paying the cost of the upgrades. Thank you.
Let's take a 5-minute break. We have, if you'd like to ask a question, go over here and write it down for us, please. And take 5 minutes. Thank you. to fix the problem?
Well, I think the first thing that needs to be done is the Board of Supervisors needs to partner a little bit more closely with the Chamber of Commerce to identify the types of businesses that we can bring into the county for sales tax revenue. I said earlier that I am a supporter of big box stores. And when I say big box stores, I don't necessarily mean Walmart. I mean a Sears, I mean a Mervyn's, JCPenney, Target. But I think that the board could partner more closely with the chamber because they have the resources. They are the Chamber of Commerce. And I think we could partner more effectively with the chamber to identify the types of businesses that we want to come into the area and go out and aggressively recruit those businesses and sell our county to those businesses.
The same question? Okay. I think what we need to really focus on is repeat the question. I just saw my granddaughter in the microphone. Oh, thank you. Got it. Well, first of all, interestingly enough, by the statistic that just recently went out, we are between 45 and 50% under the tax revenue that 12 million Amador County generates, which is a staggering amount of money, staggering percentages. But let's keep that in perspective over here for a moment. Obviously, that has to be increased. We can do that in a number of ways. But as Sarah has mentioned, I think what we need to do is I think we need to partner up. We need to partner with people. We need to partner with the Chamber of Commerce, which they do a phenomenal job considering what they have to work with and their budget is concerned. The Visitors Bureau, I mean, all of the associations that Calaveras County has should be working together and should be trying to do something other than worrying about what the other counties are doing in regards to tax base or tax contribution. I think we're so unique, Calaveras County is so unique, I think we need to be concentrating on what we can develop to subsidize or replace or add on to what we presently have, rather than being concerned about what we have lost. It's the half empty, half full. I think we need to look at something where we're standing, where we're looking at 45% less tax revenue than Amador and Tuolumne. I think we should look at that as an advantage. Okay, this is our advantage. This is an opportunity to show what we can do, what we're made of, and what we can accomplish. The Board of Supervisors, Chamber of Commerce, the Visitors Bureau, and the other associations should really put their heads together and say, okay, let's do this collectively, and let's put together a plan, and let's execute that plan. We have amazing talent in this county, amazing retired people who have gone through this time and time again. We should be tapping into that source and asking them for assistance. And I promise you that if we asked, we would receive it. Thanks.
All of my life, Highway 4 corridors has not had a robust retail sector in the economy. Quite frankly, I shouldn't say all of my life, because that changed here when Angels had the courage to go ahead and permit those two shopping centers. The one with State Mart and Rite Aid was the first one to come in, and then Long's and Starbucks and some restaurants and Golden Cellular. The place that has the competitive advantage for retail on the Highway 4 corridor, frankly, is Angels Camp. This is the crossroads of 4 and 49, so if we're going to have something of a more regional basis, I think it will locate in Angels, because it can service all of the Highway 4 corridor and the 49 corridor down to and including San Andres. And quite frankly, it has the high school there, so it attracts from Copper and Arnold coming down there. So if we're going to do that and continue what Angels has basically started, and I think they probably will continue that, because I think that's where the economics would dictate that a more regional retail would locate. And then it's going to be up to the city, and if it's not in the city, then it's going to be in the county, but it will be very close, I think, to the city limits. I would certainly assume it would be within the sphere of influence of the city. So I think we need to work closely with the city if such a proposal comes forward. The county is proposing to put an economic development element in the general plan, the general plan update. Strongly in favor of that. But I don't think our salvation, even though we have a new economic development council that's been formed, I don't think our salvation in the short term is to go out and say we're going to get tax breaks or we're going to do whatever for manufacturing jobs. We need to do, in my opinion, a better job of servicing the demographics we currently have. And one of the areas we need to do better, and I think they're making a huge effort, is in health services. If we lose the hospital, we will have lost a huge asset. And as the hospital reaches out and into Angels Camp and into the other communities, we need to be supportive of that, because one of our key infrastructures is going to be health service. And the hospital seems to be re-energized and moving forward, and I think that's a wonderful thing. Thank you.
Well, the good news is we're already doing something to build cooperation between the Board of Supervisors, the City Council, and the Chamber of Commerce, and approximately 14 other interest groups have stepped forward to join the Economic Development Summit planning process. These represent the full range of stakeholders in the county. And remember, it's not just the businesses that are the stakeholders, it's also the youth of our communities, the families of our communities, the health and other providers that are essential services to both build and maintain vibrant communities. So we need to make sure that we stay on a balanced approach as we attempt to enrich the tax base, and we can only do that if we're successfully growing our communities in ways that make them attractive for us to stay in them and to attract appropriate infill development in those communities. Economic development is a complex process and it will not occur overnight, but I think this question really speaks to, are we getting started? And the good news is, yes, we have started in the past 6 months. For the first time in anybody's recollection, the City Council and the Board of Supervisors met together in joint session. The second meeting focused on economic development, particularly with the leadership of the Chamber of Commerce demonstrating in facts and figures the impact of sales tax flight on the communities and the loss of jobs up to where people literally commute out of Calaveras County to go find gainful employment. If we keep a perspective that's fact-based, not ideological, but fact-based, where are we at? What do we have as a resource base to go forward on? What are the real challenges that we're facing? Then we will be able to overcome this challenge. We do have a deep talent pool in this community. Thank you.
Next question, next round, we'll start with Mr. Klass. What will you do to fix the quagmire in the Community Development Department?
Is lynching still allowed? That's again, that's an amazing question. I think the quagmire. Everything starts at the top and works down. And I've had the pleasure of being at the top a few times in my career. And I look at the quagmire as a solution to the quagmire, is that if you hire the right people, the qualified people, number one. Two, if you give them the responsibility and the authority to carry out their responsibilities and function in their positions, that quagmire will be very small. I don't think that's taking place. I mean, Ray Waller's a perfect example. Tom Mitchell, a perfect example. I think once again it falls down to the very basic operations of any kind of a situation. And that is there doesn't appear to be a plan in place that lacks the ego or ownership of certain people. I think the plan that has to be established in this Calaveras County is to function properly. And if you function properly with the right people who have the right responsibilities, but more important or equally important, have the authority to do their job, not only will they do their job correctly, but they'll be very happy and content doing it. And a happy, contented, successful employee is one who contributes to the success of the operation. And I've gone down to Calaveras County Government Center numerous times, and you're hard-pressed to find a happy employee. There's no question about that. And you know, that's a very sad comment, very, very sad comment, because regardless, those people do exactly what we do. They get up in the morning, they hope and pray, they work hard, they play with their kids, they come home, and they prepare to face the next day. And we should make that as enjoyable as possible. And the way you do that, again, is by assisting them in becoming successful. Thank you.
Mr. Try.
The question was, I guess, how to address the quagmire in the community development agency. I don't think it's probably a secret to anybody here that reads the paper or is informed about county government that I and, quite frankly, Marita are the two odd board members out when it comes to this issue. And quite frankly, the only way you're going to resolve this issue is address the three board members that have brought us this issue and keep this issue. And that's Supervisor Walensky, Supervisor Claudino, and Supervisor Thomas. I'm not a happy camper of the conditions down there. Have been from the start a strong supporter. But this isn't the city. The city basically has the luxury of every member of the 5 members of the city council all representing the entirety of the city. The county, we represent districts. I represent District 4, Rita represents District 3, and they represent the other districts. And quite frankly, that is a huge board problem, and board where the citizens are going to resolve it in addressing those three board members. Thank you.
Well, I don't have any firsthand knowledge of the Community Development Department, except their conference room is quite cramped. But I have read a good percentage of the 1,200 pages of transcript that was released by County Council regarding the suit and then the non-disclosure of the terms of the termination. And those 1,200 pages, spanning 20 years, that's 20 recent years, it's very clear that your health and safety have been put at risk by the approval of building permits and construction that did not meet code. This includes substandard water tanks for rural areas where that water tank is the first line of fire defense. It includes improperly constructed buildings, homes. This isn't about egos. This is about your health and safety. These public servants, the inspectors and the management of the building department, work for you to protect you. They're just as important as the fire and police. It's unforgivable that 20 years of mismanagement has been tolerated, and that termination seemed to involve, I don't know what other word to call it, but money's being paid to avoid the open and fair discussion of the performance of the planning department, the building department. These things need to be aired in public. I believe you can now get copies of that material. I invite you to read it. There's been excellent coverage in the press. You need to continue to drill down on it to form your own opinion. About what I would do is I wouldn't spend a lot of time on the past, because that's ancient history now, and hopefully you'll take care of that problem at the election. But I do believe that my experience as a consultant in business management for the Hewlett-Packard Company with many organizations have, you only call a consultant when there's a problem, right? So I've been in the environment before where there's a failing organization that needs outside assessment, needs a performance audit, and needs to make the hard decisions. Most of the time, those problems start at management level. The employees usually want to do a good job, and they need the training and support of professional managers who will put the public interest at the utmost in every day they come to work. Thank you.
Well, I think it's going to take a while to unravel a lot of the issues that have come up in the community development department. Just recently, I had a personal experience with the department, and actually I was quite pleased with the employees and their responsiveness and how good they were, having heard their reputation through the paper and various other sources. But I think really what a good first step would be to have a certain set of steps. If you need to get a permit for something, you do X, Y, and Z. You make it uniform. And I think it's the confusion of what you're supposed to be doing that makes the whole situation really negative. And I think if they sat down, and like I said, this takes a long time, really identified the codes, figured out what the codes are trying to say, and then coming up with a definite definition of what the codes mean, follow those definitions, and then have a set of steps as to how you get a certain permit, just to have even paperwork, even if it's this thick for somebody who's going in to build a house, you hand them the paperwork and say, okay, these are all the things you need to do, almost a checklist, to be able to build a house in this county with the associated fees within that paperwork. I think that would be a good first step to actually take care of some of the miscommunication problems that seem to come out of that department. Thank you.
Next round, we'll start with Mr. Tran. What type, if you like this one, Tom? What type of measures would you support to encourage the business and livelihoods of those that continue to operate farms and ranches in Calaveras County?
Well, I have been, I guess, on the Board of Supervisors over my terms in office, the strongest advocate of agriculture. Recently, we just redid the ag zones. We formed an ag coalition made up of basically the Farm Bureau, the cattlemen's, the wine grape growers, and the Calaveras grow. And we revised and implemented new ag zoning regulations. That was controversial. There was one vote that almost sort of crashed on us at the end, but we were able to hold it together. It was strongly opposed by the what I would call sort of the rural subdivisions. Golden Hills in particular showed up in strong opposition, as did Bar 20. They didn't want vineyards, and they didn't want other types of activities. And we were able to hold the board together, and we passed those zoning changes. There is a proposal which I support to put an ag element in the upcoming general plan. I think that's a very strong proposal which I support. So I think ag is very important for ag to be productive and not get squeezed. That doesn't mean that ag land is going to be able to compete for residential prices, but a lot of people like to be on the land, and we certainly don't want to do anything that forces them off the land, in my opinion. I guess I still have a little bit of time. Am I allowed to go back to the last question for a minute? Because I am not at all in favor of what the board did in the public humiliation of Ray Waller. I thought that was an absolute insult to the citizens of the county, to Ray. Ray had been an employee for over 20 years. Lee is absolutely wrong. For 20 years, your public health and safety was not at risk. That's absolutely absurd. When Ray was terminated, I made a very strong appeal to the board that he be approached and that we negotiate a termination settlement. Ray was close to retirement. I encouraged the board to offer to buy in a couple of years of PERS or something. The board adamantly did not want to. They wanted to make a public statement. And the public statement was that there was, there's a new world order, or in this case, there's a new county order, there's a new sheriff in town, there was the other 3 supervisors, and their statement to the building community and to the public was using Ray, in my opinion, in an absolute unjust and unfair way, and just publicly humiliating. I think that was absolutely horrible. I think it was absolutely not how you treat employees. And you can talk about the termination statement. He was terminated for one reason only, and that was because he was not able to work with the community development director. When the board made the termination, they went to personnel and they turned to county council and said, "We want to make a termination. You give us the best case." And so staff went and searched the record for 20 years to come up with the best case for termination. But he was terminated for one reason and one reason only, and that was because of his inability to work with the community development director. Thank you.
I'll focus on the question you asked. The Central Sierra Resource Conservation and Development Council is a membership organization that both the county and the city are members of. And as well, there are many local interest groups throughout Calaveras County that also participate in the Central Sierra RC&D. The RC&D is chartered by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Secretary of Agriculture. It is a service area that embraces Calaveras, Amador, Tuolumne, and Alpine County, as well as northern half of Mono County. This is chartered by the Department of Agriculture because it is recognized as grassroots support for agriculture is absolutely vital for its continued existence in America. If we want to have family farms and ranches, such as we have in this county, we must work together to make that a viable option for not only the families today, but their children in the future. The RC&D is a vehicle for bringing federal and state monies into the region, including the county, to make agriculture a more profitable undertaking for the farmers and ranchers and the vineyard owners that are working landscape today. And we talk about open space, but open space that isn't working space is not really contributing to the community. This is the opportunity, and I think it's absolutely essential that agriculture continue to be supported in this county. Organizations such as Calaveras Grown, the RC&D, and the Cattlemen's Producers Organization have been working for a number of years now on a project to increase value-add contribution to Calaveras Grown beef. This is something that we can be famous for. It can be something that will increase the profit margins for every cattle producer. These are the basic bottom line steps that need to be supported, not only by the community, but by the Board of Supervisors. And I do appreciate, under the current leadership, they have in fact rejoined after a gap of a couple of years. Thank you.
Well, agriculture basically is the bedrock of our community. It's not just the heritage of our community. It provides our open spaces. And if we don't protect agriculture, we will lose the open spaces. If someone buys an agriculturally zoned piece of property, then it's one general plan amendment by the board of supervisors for turning it into developmental property. So I think it's very important to support agriculture. That being said, if it's not financially viable, you can't force people to keep land that is not paying for itself. I think one aspect that we could use is our conservation easements. These are regulated by the Department of Fish and Game, and what happens in these is sometimes there are one property, sometimes there are multiple properties, and it allows developers from other areas to buy conservation chits in Calaveras County and develop elsewhere. So that helps keep our open spaces open. Now, there has to be a balance between agriculture, I think, in our townships, and I think we're on our way to doing that. But I think really what we need to remember with agriculture is that it keeps this county looking the way it does. It keeps our lifestyle the way it is. It keeps our open spaces open, and I would definitely be open to different ways of supporting agriculture in our community.
I agree. You know, the ag business here in Calaveras County is not only visually beautiful, but obviously it's very productive for the other peoples that come into the county. People come here because there are open lands. They come here because there are ranches and there are farms. And they appreciate that because it's becoming less and less available. So we are blessed to have the ag business. There's no question about it. And I think we, the citizens of Calaveras County, really do treasure that. There's not a day that goes by on Main Street where I don't hear someone talk about how beautiful it was driving here, or how wonderful it is when I leave here, how awful it is when I get home. So, you know, we do have to protect that because not only is it a viable resource, but it's also a treasure. And I think we should do everything we can to protect that. And I believe we are. And I can't imagine anyone being on the wrong side of the table with regards to saving our ag. Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for another couple of questions. I do want to leave a little time to allow you guys to have concluding remarks. The next round will be with Mr. Seaton. How do you feel parks and recreation should be managed in our county?
Very well. We finally have one to manage. It's a step forward, right? Parks and recreation are a vital part of any community. And one of the things that we've done in the City of Angels is we do have a park and recreation mitigation fee, because development does have an impact. It does load the parks. It does you do need more parks and you need more options. I'm going to focus on a couple of very practical steps. The first is the Council of Governments, which is our Regional Transportation Planning Council here in Calaveras County, has written 2 master plans. The first one of importance is the pedestrian plan, because people walking are healthy people and they will use the outdoors more effectively than the proverbial couch potato. The second is bicycles are an important alternative transportation form, not just for commuting short distances, but they are recreational resources that enhance the quality of life because they give people additional mobility. Beyond that, they also are a very popular form of recreation and competition. You may know we've had the Century here just about a year and a half ago now, a very great turnout for its first year. The people said, gee, this was fabulous, we're going to come back again. That brings money into the county, and it helps support the overall recreation programs that we need to build in our communities. The city and county have both supported expansion of more youth-oriented recreational facilities such as the Pratt Park Recreation Complex. That is a great addition. That's, again, a combination of private and public funding for that resource. It is important. A healthy youth is a better prepared youth for education, they stay out of trouble, and they develop lifestyle commitments that they'll use for their entire life. So that's how I look at parks and recreations, and I think we have plans in place at the Council of Governments to help guide us in fulfilling those projects. Thank you.
I definitely support Parks and Recreation in the county. I think it's wonderful that through volunteerism, we have quite a few resources just here on the Highway 4 corridor. We have Murphy's Park down there, we have Feeding Park, we have Utica Park, and there's many other little parks that some of us just stumble upon that are just, I mean, they're wonderful services to the community. I think it's great that the county is on board now with the new Parks and Recreation Commission, because having that bucket, so to speak, here in the county codified, we now can get or apply for state funding in the form of grants to help different areas in the county develop their parks and recreation areas as well. And I would definitely support that.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. I think we definitely need a Park and Recreation Committee. I think if Mason's here, I'm sure he's more than ready to take the job. But let me give you a little background with regards to the Park and Recreation here. Just let me speak for a moment on Murphy's. The Murphy's Community Club maintains, the primary responsibility is maintain the Murphy's Park. And the Murphy's Park is an equivalent, in my opinion, of the Statue of Liberty in New York. I mean, when people come to Murphy's, they can't say enough about our park. They absolutely love it. The only people that don't have something nice to say about it are usually lawyers. Because they can't imagine why we have a park so open and so free. Well, because, we're blessed. But I've been involved, and I've been a past president of Murphy's Community Club, and I'm involved in Murphy's Community Club, and it is an amazing, amazing organization. And anyone here that's not a member, please become a member. We work, and the board and the volunteers work on this park with all their heart and soul, and it is absolutely beautiful. There is a little problem, and that problem is, of course, our volunteers are getting older, and you're looking to one. So volunteers are always good for about 10 years, and then we kind of wither away because our bones get fractured. But a Park and Recreation commission and committee would certainly help parks such as Feeding Park, which, if I'm not mistaken, is having a financial situation that they're looking at. Murphy's Community Club is maintaining the park and doing it amazingly well. I can't imagine how well they're doing it. But they're coming into a situation now where they are going to need some additional attention from the county. We've been wanting to do an extension of the park. We haven't been able to do it as yet for all the obvious reasons, but it certainly is on the board. Tom Mitchell was very helpful in that area before he left. But we need a commitment from the Calaveras County to assist our parks, whether it's Feeney or whether it's Murphy's Park. We need to maintain these because they are absolutely treasures, not only for the visitors, not only for the residents, but the kids are. The kids in this area treat the parks the way we used to treat it back in the 40s and 50s. It's theirs. Murphy's Community Club Park is theirs. It's an amazing gift we're giving them, and we have to treasure that and prepare for it. Thank you.
Mr. Trump.
I also am in favor of Parks and Rec. I'm waiting for a candidate to stand up and say they aren't. I guess to me it's critical. It's one thing to use it as a fundraising mechanism, but it's critical to me as to how the money is distributed. I am not in favor of county government coming in and taking over the community park at Murphy's or Feeney Park or Capello Park, etc. I think the community club should remain as the manager of the community park in Angels and the Feeney Park Foundation for Feeney Park and the AMA, the Arnold Murphy's Angels group that does the Capello Park, etc. I think what we need to do is do fundraising and obtain money, and then allow them to submit projects and fund those projects. I'm not in favor of the county coming in at this point and just taking over all the park and recreational responsibilities in the county or in District 4. I'm very interested in maintaining the community involvement, volunteerism. One of the great draws to be a member of the community club is because of its responsibility for the park and also activities on Main Street and just the overall health of the community of Murphy's. So I am for Park and Recs, but I'm not for the county coming in and taking over the parks and recs and being totally responsible for them. Thank you.
I want to go to concluding statements in just a moment. But first, how many people came here tonight? If you'll help me out just a little bit. How many people came here tonight and you already had your mind made up on who you're going to vote for? A few. Yeah, that's your wives and families. So I'm going to say
My wife's hand raised.
How many people here tonight have heard something that it really influences them, makes them want to vote for a particular candidate at this point? Anybody else? So I take it that some portion of you, not small, is still waiting to hear something more, okay? Let's give it a shot. You've got 3 minutes each. And let's start with Mr. Seaton.
Okay. Well, you've had an opportunity to hear my, thank you. Well, you've heard an opportunity to hear my responses to a very good set of questions, and I'm happy to hear that they came from you primarily. So I don't want to try to get emotional, but this is about the destiny of our communities. We live in an absolutely awesome area. You hear that over and over. But with too much, what is the phrase? To those much has been given, much is expected. I take that very seriously. We have a responsibility when we run for and accept the responsibility of leadership to serve at the highest possible standards of ethics and commitment to public values. I hope that you will demand that we hold those values. It goes beyond simply getting elected. Once elected, it's a 4-year commitment of service. That's a responsibility that can only be maintained if you continue to exercise your right to appear before the Board of Supervisors and to demand to be heard, to be respected. You are entitled to that regard because it is a foundational element of our American democracy. And that comes right down here to Calaveras County's 4th District. We need to encourage people to come and participate in government. Sarah talked about the inadequate staffing of our special districts. Those are part of our government. Whether they're the right number or not isn't the issue. They are there now. They are conducting the public business. They need your support, not just with tax dollars, but with your time and energy to serve. That's what makes a vibrant community, is when everyone takes their fair share of the responsibility of governing ourselves. And I hope that tonight is give you encouragement that you are being listened to, that we do have a competitive race, and that you will personally support public participation in local government in the future. Thank you.
As I said earlier, the reason why I got into the race is because I feel like the county is at a tipping point with its growth. It's going to grow one way or another, and we need to manage it well, and we need to plan for it. And that doesn't mean planning for right now. It means planning for 20, 30, 40 years out from now. And what encourages me about all of us, all 4 of us who are running, we all come to the table with different ideas and different viewpoints and different approaches to the issue. And one of the things that I really want to see come out of this race, I would love to be elected, but one thing I would really like to see is that whoever actually gets a seat takes the ideas of the other three and tries to incorporate them into what he or she is doing for the county, and really running with those ideas and making Calaveras County an even better place to live 20 or 30 years from now. Thank you.
Mr. Fox?
Yes, I also would like obviously to thank you for being here. Seeing this type of a turnout is wonderful, because when you are running a campaign, you wonder if anybody is really interested. And this obviously shows us that there are definite interests in what's going on in the county. I see this, as a lot of us have mentioned, I see this as an amazing opportunity, this time frame that we presently have. We live in an amazing, amazing place. And I know it may get a little boring hearing people say that, but it's absolutely an incredible place. And I think we have a responsibility to maintain the values that we presently have. The small town values, the ag values, the neighborhood values, the kids' values, and we have the opportunity to do that. And one way we can do that is we must make the government transparent. We must make the people who we elect or put in charge of running the day-to-day county responsible with the authority and a dedication that we all hope that they would have. We don't need someone to be standing there or sitting there requiring something for their own personal needs or of their own personal district needs. I think there needs to be 5 districts working together for the betterment of Calaveras County. And the timing is so key right now that we have a golden opportunity to bring in industry into this county that allows us the beauty of being one other thing besides a tourist attraction, besides being a wine country, besides being a beautiful ag company. We can also be a center for the green industry and the environmental industry. We can also be a center for young people to come and learn professions, and learn and develop a career, and stay here. To see the young kids leave is a crime, absolute crime. So I would like to see whoever wins, and obviously I would appreciate your support, I would like them to keep in mind that there are people in this county that are far more important than all the rest of this combined. As far as the history is concerned, we learn from the history. So let's not forget the history, but let's just use it as an asset to build on the future. And I thank you very much.
Mr. Brown?
Well, let me start by saying every election I've ever stood for is always the tipping point election, because there's always been huge issues that we've gone through over the last 24 years. And this is also a tipping point election, and 4 years from now will be another tipping point election that will deal with the concerns of the citizens at that particular point in time. I've been fortunate enough to be reelected, and I think our district has prospered significantly during my tenure in office. Lee makes it sound like we've never had community meetings in Murphy's. Well, Lee obviously has never attended a community club meeting, or he never attended the meetings here, or Blackwater Players when we got all the controversial issues over development issues within the city of Angels, particularly those affecting Main Street. But, you know, both the city of Angels and Murphy's, even in these recessionary times, are doing very, very well on their sales tax dollars. When we did the reviews for our budget, Murphy's in the Highway 4 corridor, but particularly Murphy's and Angels are doing very well. They're doing very, very well on TOT. If you want to look at and see where like 15 of the 18, don't hold me exactly to the numbers, but it's some percentage like that of wineries and wine tasting they're in Angels and Murphy's. If you want to look at where the overnight accommodations are in the county, there's something like 80% are in Angels and are in Murphy's. You know, Copper, I mean, they have a motel in Copper. So substantially, the county, in many ways, is financially living off in significant ways of the economic prosperity is apparent, I think, to just about all of us that are in Angels Camp and in Murphy's. If you look at Murphy's, I'm very supportive of this. Murphy's is a very open community. We have weddings and special events all throughout the community. We have fine dining, we have wineries, wine tasting, we have the arts with art galleries, music in the park, black park players, Murphy's Theater Group, Children's Theater Group. We have basically built an economy that the fine dining, the catering, etc., that builds on itself. It takes all of those are complementary one to the other, and we need them all if we are going to prosper. Downtown Angels has always struggled, the historical component of Angels. But if you go to downtown Angels today, I'm not sure there's, other than the Bazinet, which has an offering on it, the old hotel downtown, I think just about every building is now occupied. And these are recessionary times. So I think we've done well. I think we have good policies, and I think we should continue with those policies. Thank you.
I want to thank the members of the Chamber of Commerce who helped out here tonight, Jim Bailey, Jack Bodie, and Diane Gray, Jan Hovey of the Calaveras Enterprise, Boy Scout Troop 343 in Murphy's. We really want to say thank you to the candidates. It takes a lot of courage to step up and do what you do. And I think the community appreciates all of you. And I especially want to thank you folks in the audience. You're a great audience. Thank you.